Hi there, welcome to Stoked to be here. My name's Laura and I'm the back half of Tandem, a record-breaking attempt to cycle around the world in 2022. And as part of our preparations for this trip, we've been talking to lots of different people from the world of cycling and a bit of endurance as well. But today it's something a bit different. We're going full on tandeming today. So I'm delighted to be joined by Colin and Diane or Di, who are here to tell us all about their adventures on tandem bicycle. And I think essentially the third person in your relationship is Matilda.
Well, there's definitely three of us.
Definitely. And she's a woman.
She's female as well.
Someone else once said there's three people in our relationship.
Well, go on then. Who is Matilda? What can you tell me about her?
Well, we're basically the two old farts in the tandem. I think is the best way to describe it.
Self-style.
I think we mentioned the word endurance in the intro there, and to have the words endurance and Matilda in the same sentence is pretty laughable. Shall we say we're not anywhere near the scale of our colleagues like yourself or Mark Beaumont or anything like that, and it is rather difficult not to laugh about that. I mean, one of our mottos, if you want to call it that, is it's the smiles that count rather than the miles, and I think that's possibly where we are. So enthusiastic amateurs.
Definitely.
Members of the self-proclaimed Nutty Tandemers Club, which I'm sure we'll talk more about. It's a nutty brand of tandeming. But who is Matilda?
Well, Matilda, shall we tell how we came to have a tandem?
No, I think we'll have to save that story.
All right.
How we got on a tandem.
Matilda came to us via a client of mine. We had hired a tandem, and my client said she was going to Australia, and I said, "Oh, we've just hired a tandem at the weekend." She said, "Oh, I've got a tandem, and I'm selling it. Would you like to buy it?" And I got in touch with Colin and said, "There's a possibility of a tandem. Do you fancy going to have a look at it?" And the guy said, when we went to see it, he said, "Why don't you take it away for a month and play with it? And if you don't want it, bring it back. And if you do want it, then we'll come to an arrangement." So needless to say, we cycled the tandem the 3 miles from her previous home to ours, and she never went back. Sat in the back garden and we both looked and we said, "No, we can't part with this. We've got to have it." So
she's a very special bike. She is a classic Jack Taylor tandem. So it's a bit like having a classic car, I guess. It's a kind of
it's a labour of love.
It's a labour of love.
Definitely a labour of love.
Believe it or not, she is actually older than us. I know that's difficult to believe, but Matilda is actually older than us, and as such has none of these carbon fibre light parts that modern bikes have. So she's fairly heavy steel frame, and gets a lot of admirers. In fact, one time we were in France and we came back to find this guy lying under her, stroking her crankshaft or cranks, because they were apparently original Jack Taylor cranks, and this guy was extremely excited about having seen a Jack Taylor tandem with the original bits. And
he was looking for the serial number. And, "You've got the original cranks! Oh my lord, that's amazing!"
And then once she came into our stable, I guess, she got a little bit above her station, and she is, as I say, quite clever, because she is now the UK's only blogging tandem bike in terms of she actually writes the blog herself, which is amazingly clever, often. And our adventures are obviously written through her eyes and ears and whatever. So the blog is written from her perspective, which is a quite kind of unique selling point, I think.
Wow, yeah,
Right.
and she's I knew she was a special bike, but I didn't quite know so much about her heritage, I must admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I must say, I think all tandems have a character. I think, you know, they're very personable bikes, if you
How
can
did
say
you-
such a thing.
How did you get a name again?
Well, that was
Oh,
me.
That was you,
That was me.
How did you get a name?
Well, we just, yeah, she was sitting in the back garden, and Colin, I said to Colin, we have to give her a name. We can't just, and it was definitely a her, you know, definitely a her. And because on the way home, we had a mechanical when we got her, and yeah, she became a bitch that day. So had to be a woman. So I had to be a girl.
Yeah,
But,
got a bit of character.
yeah, and she's a hell of a character. She likes to be attended to quite a lot. Mechanicals, yes. Spokes, yes, we go through those, and yeah, she's had a few adjustments since we got her, but she's basically as she was. And it's good. It's good fun. Good fun.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to tell you stories.
Yeah,
You know, their stories about their tandem, parents' tandem. You know, people come up to you, especially, you know, these Scottish grannies come up and say, oh, my mum and dad had a tandem. We went for holidays on them. Oh, it was great. Or you get little old ladies saying, maybe her and her husband had, when they were young and winching, going out together before they got married. We call it winching up here.
Courting.
Courting, that's another word for it. Oh, me and my Tommy had a tandem. Oh, what rare fun we had going about the country.
Okay.
So we get lots of stories. And I think that's the important thing with a tandem. People talk to you because you're an object of fun. Whereas if you were on single bikes, they just ignore you. But you park a tandem at the side of the road, and within 10 minutes, somebody will have stood and looked at it for a while, you know, or asked you a question about it. Or
parked a French horn.
We've got a park horn, because we find that a tinkle bell doesn't get people out of the way quickly enough for a tandem.
You must have found that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing is, if you watch, and particularly pedestrians, anybody passing, you get so many smiles. So you know, you know, even if you're passing, even if you haven't got you've not stopped to chat, people smile at you, and kids point and wave, and
you're an object of fun. Yeah, and children shout, "Mummy, look, there's a double bike." You hear that quite a lot.
There's two people sat on that bike. Yeah, they're amazed, aren't they? And yeah, it is. And I think there is something truly special about them, and I think that's why obviously Matilda has such a strong character. I think. Yeah.
I think we also need to, as Stokers, we need to have a secret society of Stokers, because we have to have a library, or whatever the word is, of phrases to shout back at people when you're not pedaling on the back, obviously.
Yeah. She's got her feet up. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. She's not pedaling at the back, really. That's the first time I've heard that today. Since the last time.
Yeah, I think that's the classic one. We try to come up with original answers, but never really come up with one that hits the spot, do we?
Until COVID.
Oh yes, until COVID.
Until COVID, because we're supposed to obviously stay 2 meters apart, and people will say, you know, you're not 2 meters apart, and Colin always shouts back, "That's all right. I'm sleeping with a stoker."
That shut them up.
Same bubble, yeah.
That shuts them up.
Shuts them up.
But talking of bubbles, I mean, obviously, Matilda was as I said, a triumvirate, a part of our relationship, and so you better explain how tandeming actually got us together.
Well, Colin and I had, we were both divorced, and we were both on Match.com, and
A blind date.
we went on a blind date.
Wow.
We went to Loch Catrin in the Trossachs, and they do bicycle hire. So we arrived there, and Colin said, "Do you fancy hiring a bike?" And we said, "Yeah, well, why not?" And then we went across to the booth, and we spotted a tandem. And he said, have you ever been on Tandem? I said, no.
And I said, neither have I.
And that was our thing. We had to do things that we'd never done before. So we had the Tandem. And that was...
And you get, there's a steamship, old steamship, Walter Scott steamship, and it steamed you down to the bottom end of the loch. So we thought, well, we'll go and have a picnic at the bottom end of the loch. So the two of us, plus this higher Tandem, gets thrown on the steamship down to the bottom of the loch, at which point you're then 14 miles away from the higher booth. And the only way back is to pedal, and we hadn't ever been on a Tandem before. So you can imagine what it was like. And it's also quite hilly. So we didn't know the gearing or anything like that. And it started to rain after about a mile.
It was wet. Oh my
Very
God.
wet.
Oh,
Scottish rain.
no.
And one of the times we stopped to get a breath back, and we obviously hadn't got a synchronicity of moving off, which is crucial to Tandem. I'm sure you've got your own little routine that we do. We do a 3-2-1 system. And we had obviously hadn't perfected that. And at one point I pedaled off and I shot off the back, literally shot off the back into a rather large puddle.
Sitting in a puddle.
She was sitting in a puddle in the rain.
Oh no.
And on a first date, on a blind date, and expecting you to moan, and you didn't moan.
No, I laughed.
She laughed.
I was sitting there laughing hysterical. I thought it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
You should have moaned the
I
rest.
should have moaned.
You should have moaned. And the rest is history. The rest is history, really, and that is actually a true story.
It really is. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yes, and I must admit, I think we both shared a cycling love stories column in the past years. So, but it's been great to hear it again. And yeah, I think that shows true character being shot off the back on the first date.
Within a year of that tumultuous first date, we'd actually moved in together. We acquired Matilda by that point, and Matilda was in the garage, and then effectively as our baby. Did somebody mention a baby?
No, I'm not pregnant.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
The hardest thing we found though was because where we live is very, very hilly. Very hilly. You either go up a hill to leave, or you go down a hill to leave. So whatever way you go, there's a bloody great big hill to get back home. So we didn't have a trailer, so we had to find a car that we could put Matilda in, on, behind, whatever. So I was sent to several garages with a measuring tape, and you had my list of instructions that it had to be a certain height, that the seats had to fold down on the passenger side the whole way through, so that we could get the bike inside the car. And so we sit in tandem when we take Matilda out.
So we go anywhere away from home.
oh right, yeah. No, I see what you mean now.
On the left-hand side of the car, if you want to call it that, and we occupy the two, the driver's seat and the passenger seat. So we actually sit in tandem in the car to go tandem.
In the car as well.
Because we can't lift her on top of into a roof rack because she's too heavy.
Yeah, she will be as a Steely, won't she? Yeah.
A bit like us. We're not exactly. No, you can't lift me either. We're not exactly racing snakes. I think that's half the fun too, because we're not, your typical, very slim lycra clad cyclists. We're endurance. We're not injured.
But then it's a whole spectrum, and I think there's been a lot more diversity coming through more and more, even in the endurance riders. There's all sorts of different builds and different shapes and styles and stuff. So yeah, I think it's it's good, and I think it's a really good way of showing people that you don't need to whip it thin and wearing lycra to go out and have fun doing these things.
Exactly. And you don't have to be mega fit.
No,
because I'm asthmatic. I use I've got quite a lot of inhalers I take for asthma, so it's improved my stamina since we started doing this. So you don't have to be super fit.
No, we do like to do the matching jerseys thing just for as part of the adapting stuff at all. So we try and get matching jerseys and stuff like that. So we like that part of it. So.
Yeah, it's all part and the parcel, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tandeming as a couple, I think can present its own unique challenges. Do you find there's pros and cons to
Yeah, well,
riding?
I think
Well, you take this one.
It's better than being. We reckon it's better than being on solo bikes because obviously you both cycle at the same pace, not surprising one. And as a result of that, you both amazingly arrive, as I'm sure you know, at the same place at the same time. And if you don't, it's a problem. And you can also talk to each other, which can be a benefit or a con, depending. You can talk to each other as you're cycling along. So I think one of our other mottos, I think we said the one about it's the smiles, not the miles that count. But the other one is always better when we're tandeming together. As another kind of one, and it generally is. Well, that's not to say we don't have some discussions in inverted commas. We have many of those. Like generally to do with the route.
Well, you've got no sense of direction. He's got no sense of direction. You know, no, none at all.
And I'm in the front. That's a problem.
You say to Colin, look to your right, and you'll go, and look to his left. You want to say which right, you know, the other right. You know, tap on the shoulder or on the backside. We're going this way, you know. And map reading. Yes, that's interesting sometimes.
We don't have the electronic kind of gizmo thing that would presumably make that a lot easier. Although I guess that's probably something that we need to get at some point.
But maybe less fun.
Yeah. Then we'd
I do like to resort to a map.
Who was in
control of the map reading?
Who was in control of that?
I think one of the other, I mean, obviously it's a lot of fun, and I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons. I guess one of the cons can be that obviously as a couple, you occasionally end up bonking together, to use that cycling phraseology.
Yes.
Cycling one. You tend to do it together rather than separately, and that happened fairly recently, and it was pretty dramatic in terms of running out of energy. And obviously, I mean, so yeah, we both had to kind of recharge at the same time. Yeah, I think the pros outweigh the cons.
Definitely.
I think it's the old thing of you see couples on separate solo bikes, even with e-bikes. And the guy, or usually the guy, but not always, quite often it can be the woman as well. As soon as they get there, the other person actually wants to move off after the other person's, you know, kind of totally out of breath, getting stuff. At least you stop in the same place, start in the same place, stop in the same place, and hopefully arrive in the same place.
Well, yeah, and if we didn't have a tandem and we were on separate bikes, I'd be waiting for you because I'd be in the right place and you'd be lost.
I'd be lost.
You can keep track of him. You can keep track of you. You're better half. No, I think
with our my handlebars are, because it's an older style bike, my handlebars, I can't put anything on my handlebars because they're part of Colin's seat. So I can't have anything on my handlebars like a GPS system or anything. And Colin has got so many gadgets on the front on his handlebars. Somebody once described them in the bike shop as very busy handlebars.
Of course, the best addition that Matilda has, because of the classic Tandem, is what is called La Boucle, which is a French wine carrier. And it's a leather kind of attachment that carries the Prosecco bottle with us when we go off on our day adventures for our Prosecco picnic.
Oh yeah, very, very important part.
Very important.
Yeah. No, I think it is.
Part of tandeming is to rehydrate with Prosecco.
Definitely.
Very important part of the day.
I agree, totally.
Posh picnics, and
Posh
yes,
picnics.
that hangs on the front of the front pannier
Pannier.
carrier, and that does attract a lot of attention as well. Oh, I like the wine carrier.
Actually, last time we were out, remember the guy came up and he said, "I have to have one of those. Where did you get that?"
The best bicycle
No,
accessory.
yeah, he said that's the best bicycle accessory I've ever seen.
Yeah, never mind all these bike packing frame bags and all sorts.
Oh,
You know,
no, that's so
all you
last
need is a wine carrier.
Yeah, wine carrier.
I think the pros are definitely the fun, and obviously I think it's, as Di said, it's much more sociable, and with ourselves we've had this kind of self proclaimed Nutty Tandemers club, and there's only 4 members of it, 2 other members, Jane and John, who are down in Redditch and Birmingham, so we don't see them all that often, but when we do get together, the 2 tandems go around, and it's like this kind of madcap adventures. And I think that's the kind of fun that you can have on these bicycles made for 2, if you want to put it that way, quirky bikes, rather than just 4 solo bikes trying to get somewhere. It's just it's like 2 teams, isn't it? It's like 2 teams.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's better than 1 tandem is 2 tandems together, because then it's even
Absolutely.
more mind blowing for people. People
Totally.
think they're seeing double, don't they? It's
Yeah. Well, they do, Jane and John, they do things like Eroica and some of the tandem rallies, which we don't up here because they don't tend to happen up in our part of Scotland. But we do get dressed up
Do it?
at Christmas.
Okay.
We
Oh, you've got to.
we got dressed up at Christmas a couple of years ago. Yeah, a couple of years ago. And Colin was Santa Claus, obviously, fun. And I was Rudolph.
Full Santa
So
Claus,
I
full
had
Rudolph outfit on,
Big
including the headset.
Rudolph.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't breathe, couldn't see, pedaling up and going up
and
through
down
the
the high
town. And just funny story, my son was in the pub and somebody had been outside the pub and went back in and said, "You'll never guess what I've just seen. I've just seen Santa and Rudolph cycling up the street on a tandem." And my son said, "Oh no, it's not bloody mother." How embarrassing is that?
That's
Wonderful.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I have been known to sport a pair of antlers before, so
yeah.
it's a good opportunity to show it all off, isn't it? It is. Where are your favourite places to ride? Is it all locally? It sounds like you've got some kind of great routes near where you are, despite the hills, obviously.
Yeah, despite the hills.
I think it's a mixture. Pre-COVID, we tried to do our own Tour de France each year, leisurely, cycling away day to day through the vineyards in France. So we did various vineyards tours, the Loire Valley, Bordeaux.
There's a theme building here.
Theme building with all the wine. And that was great fun because you would roll up at one of these posh vineyards, and obviously they're delighted to let you taste the wine and everything. We probably didn't realise we'd arrived at a tandem at that point. And so you get the posh tour and the tasting and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the part of it would naturally be that you would be expected to buy a couple of bottles before you left the said vineyard. And so, sorry, we arrived in a tandem. We can't know where to carry it. So, tell you what, we'll maybe bring the car back then later in the holiday and saunter off to the next one. So that pedal off to the next one. But it's very sociable, as you said. I mean, we were sitting on a couple of canal banks, and the friends would go past, maybe having one of our posh picnics, and we just bon appetits and wander past, and they would want to be part of it. I think locally we probably we try and use the Sustrans and the National Cycling Network routes as much as possible, I guess, because there's not exactly a short vehicle as Matilda is here, and it makes us feel a bit safer. And I think we're probably happy to give most routes a try as long as they're not too hilly. As we mentioned, that the hills around our hometown of Auchterarder and southern Perthshire. So basically, every route you do, you come back uphill, so you've got to leave some energy for that. I think one of our top places to be is near the sea. We like being near the sea, so kind of we're right in the centre of Scotland where we are. So we can, within an hour, you can be either on the east coast or the west coast. And I like to do the Ayrshire cycle route, and where where my mum lives, Irvine, so we do that before we go to see her, or east coast and Tarboro. That's a nice flat one, which is going along the coast most of the way. And I think probably one of our favourite places is the Isle of Cumbria, which most people in the world have never heard of, but it's a small island off the west coast of Scotland. It's a 10-minute ferry journey to get there, and when you get on the ferry and you get off the ferry, it's like quite literally being in a different world. It's like
we're back about 40 years.
Wow.
An old-fashioned seaside resort from about 40 years ago. With the same, there's a cafe there called the Ritz Cafe, which still has the red Formica tables.
Bench seats, and it's got a jukebox.
And Woods is wearing the kind of black and white.
And I think the waitresses have been there since they were in the 20s.
But it's a cycling mecca because it's the kind of place that people go down from Glasgow for the day, and there's thousands of bikes. I think there's 7,000 bikes for hire a night, and on a busy day, it's more or less traffic free, and it's a 10-mile circular circumference route round Ireland. Virtually flat. So it's quite good for time trialing. We have done that a few times, and there's quite a lot of cycling clubs go down and do the kind of full 10-mile thing round for training purposes. And we were there one Sunday afternoon when they were doing that, and there's obviously a finishing line painted in the road, and so all these extremely lycra-clad carbon fibre bikes were sailing past us at different points in fact some
stopwatches and clipboards. Some
passed us twice. That means they're going round twice in the time we were going round, so you can tell how fast they were going. And we came up to the finishing line, which wasn't our finishing line, obviously. And big tears and hoots and toots because we crossed the finishing line.
A finishing line.
A finishing line. Yeah, anywhere as well.
Yeah, we've got, where we live is so lovely. I mean, central Scotland, Perthshire in particular, is beautiful. I mean, the scenery is so diverse, you know, and you can travel 70 miles and still be in the same county. And the scenery made up from Loch Rannoch, you know, across to Perth, which is sea level, you know, and over to Crieff and over to Aberfeldy. It's just beautiful.
I mean, during lockdown 1, we did 1,000 miles over the 7-8 weeks, because obviously you were able to get out on the bike in your bubble, and it was glorious. The weather was beautiful, and we just felt so lucky to be able to do that and not be affected in any way by COVID, and definitely kept us healthy both mentally and physically during that period.
That sounds amazing. That island sounds really interesting. Yeah,
Isle of Cumbria.
Everybody calls it Milford. It's got a hump in the middle. There's a big high hill in the middle.
You go around the outside.
We go around the outside. We've done it twice walking.
We've got a world record.
We take Matilda for a walk.
We've got a world record coming down the hill.
Ah.
Yeah, on Strava, you get the world record time.
Oh, you got the
Obviously, not many people had cycled tandem downhill from there. But we have the world. We currently hold the world record for apparently Strava for downhill on that stretch.
With my eyes closed and screaming, "Will you slow down?" Which of course he doesn't hear because he's deaf.
No.
It's great because him being deaf on the front, I can shout and scream and call him all sorts of things.
I think my husband just ignores me when I scream. Slow down. No.
He's going too fast because you're not in control.
No, it's a bit like being on a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's and I'm really glad you mentioned like the soft strands, the National Cycling Network routes as well, because I think they're just fab. And what I'd like to think is, maybe people having listened to this might think, oh, I'll go and give a tandem a go. But I think using the trans routes is a really good way of building your confidence, because they're all set out to be bike friendly. You know, a lot of them are off road, and I think it's that's a really good place to start if you do want to go out and start riding.
Definitely.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's certainly a good idea to try and hire a tandem if anybody was thinking about it before you try and before you do that outlay, because it can be quite a substantial outlay now. I mean, I think you'd be quite lucky if you got a bike just for the odd £100 or a couple of £100 now. They seem to go for a much higher value. But I think that would definitely be the thing, wouldn't it, to rent one?
Yeah. And and stick to one of the trans routes of the National Cycling Network, because in the main they're really well signposted in the main, and you can follow them fairly easily.
I think anybody that wanted to get into tandem would probably know a little bit about cycling in the first place, and unlike our story, they probably know a little bit about cycling, and they probably had this repeated conversation about one being at the top of the hill and the other one still breathing heavily to get up the hill, and then the other one wanting to move off. So it does solve a lot of these issues. But I think once you kind of got into it, then if you're looking for a lot of advice and a lot of tips and a lot of routes, obviously the Tandem Club UK, I for my sins am the social media kind of convener, or I think it's convener, I'm not quite sure what the actual Sunday title is, but look after the social media, Twitter and Facebook, etc. for them. And they have a great, I mean, basically it's the place to go to for anything to do with bicycles made for two. A plug here for the membership. The membership is only £15 a year, which must be one of the greatest value memberships that you can get anywhere at the moment, and that's for a couple, or indeed for a family. So Google Tandem Club UK if you're looking to get all of that information, or it's tandem-club.org.uk. That's tandem-club.org.uk, or as I say, Google Tandem Club UK. That's for the website, and there's a whole range of different information about tandems, how to get into tandeming, even places to hire a tandem should you wish to go back to what we're talking about, hire a tandem to begin with. A lot of people come to the Tandem Club via Facebook and Twitter. Very active on Facebook. I think they've got 2,700 active followers on Facebook at the moment. So they, again, just do your search bar on Facebook for Tandem Club, and you find lots of different routes and lots of different advice from people. I mean, there's, if you like the Tandem Club itself, there's a bi-monthly magazine that comes out. There's a network of local group rides. There's technical advice and indeed opportunities to attend tandem rallies, where I think that's one of the social highlights or the social aspects that I think particularly down in England, where you're much closer to the bases for those. You'll maybe go for either a weekend or a whole week and spend time in a whole. I don't know what's the thing noun, the group noun for tandem. Is there a group noun for tandem? Anyway,
I don't know.
Groups of tandem.
Oh, I don't know. That's interesting, isn't it? We've taken out a few bikes before, but yeah.
So maybe it'd be 30, 40 tandem couples at a tandem rally. And so we still to have that break a duck at one of those. We'll hopefully do that maybe in the next year or so. But they're supposed to be really good fun as well, and all the routes are set out, and you can choose whether to go sort of short distance, middle distance, or long distance. Long distance, of course, not being anything like the long distance that you'll be used to, but the long distance in terms of tandem is probably 70 miles a day or something. You probably
which is plenty. That's plenty for a good day out, and you need to have enough time to drink your prosecco. So
exactly. We probably do 45, 50, and some of ours.
That's about the most of it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think some of our we did mention the kind of nutty tandeming. Some of the craziest rides or the nuttiest rides that we've had. I mean, most of them really end up in an adventure somewhere or the other, don't they? But I think there's a few that we could maybe rattle off briefly. And we did the Hebridean Way, what was that, 2 years ago? Hebridean Way, up and out of Hebrides.
Yeah.
And there is one killer hill called the Clisham, or Dag has a different name for it.
I certainly have, but I can't tell you.
I have to bleep you out.
It basically has the F word Clisham in front of it. And it's particularly steep, particularly long, and particularly high, obviously, it's a hill. And we were in the hotel, overnight hotel, obviously having breakfast before the next day, and the waitress says, "Oh, where are you cycling to today?" And I'm saying, "Oh, we're moving on in Hebridean Way, and we're just about to tackle the Clisham." And she said, "What did she say?" She said, "You better have 2 breakfasts."
You better have 2 breakfasts then, she said. You're going to need it.
Oh, great.
And she was right.
She was right. Oh, God. We didn't bonk. Because we'd had a double breakfast.
Yeah.
Tandem breakfast.
Tandem breakfast, one after the other, one behind.
One behind.
And we got, finally crawled to the top, literally crawled to the top, and expecting then to have a wonderful, because for every uphill, there's obviously got to be.
Yeah.
Spectacular downhill. Spectacular downhill.
And
it would have been.
It would have been. We could see where it all was and all that kind of stuff. And the wind had dramatically changed direction by this point, and the wind had got up quite strong, sort of 15, 20 mile an hour wind, and we ended up having to pedal downhill.
Oh no!
After all that effort to get up the hill, we had
never felt anything like it in our lives, have we?
No.
And it must have been easily sort of 20, 30 miles an hour the wind, because we were virtually standing still at some point. You're thinking we're just going to fall over.
Because the momentum of the bike you thought would carry you through, but it was so strong.
The wind was so strong.
I suppose in your own field, I guess that the planning aspect of it for you around the world trip is fairly crucial, but we're not necessarily that strong in planning, although we can be, but at times we kind of overlook some of the basics. So another one, I guess, of the Nutty area that we ended up in, we decided to tour the Champagne vineyards, which sounded a lovely way to spend 3 or 4 days, going to vineyard, popping champagne here, popping champagne
idyllic,
fantastic,
Great idea, until we actually got there and found that the area was referred to on the maps as the Montagne de Champagne. Montagne doesn't really need terribly much translation. And the mountains definitely was the word, and indeed that subsequent Tour de France that year went up 2 of them, and were category 4 climbs that we
walked up.
We walked up, take Matilda for a walk, and And what was the most recent one? Oh yes, we did the Caledonia Way, which was open to Port William.
Yeah, wow.
And there was 2 half-mile sections of roadworks that weren't on the actual cycle path on the South Trans network.
After Ballahooly.
Ballahooly to Port William. And it's quite a busy tourist road. And there's no pavement and there's no cycle path. So all you have is the 2 carriageway road and then the sea for the lot. And the 2 contraflows, which are about half a mile each. And they do a lot of forestry work up there at the moment. So there's a lot of became logging lorries. Which became another euphemistic description for a lorry, a logging lorry. And so there were traffic light controlled, and I think we've never realised that the speed that you can actually go to, how fast you can go when you get 2 great logging lorries chasing up your rear end.
I'm surprised you weren't getting any more segments on Strava.
We'll probably get our fastest sections.
It was either that or splinters.
Goodness, yeah.
Oh my Lord!
But it's always adventurous, and it's always fun, and particularly with our fellow nutties, as we call them, Nutty Tandemers, Colin and Jane, always seems to develop into an unplanned adventure that we have to kind of find a way out of. But I suppose that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's all part of the fun, and obviously we've got some very well planned rides coming up, but we've had some great adventures too. I think we've been in France and our planning's fallen through a bit, and we've ended up, you know, doing some rather crazy rides then as well. And it's like, oh, really? There's another hill? So, I know that feeling, but it all adds to it.
If something goes wrong, you're sort of desperately trying to get. I don't know why, but there's this kind of. I think you'll understand that this, so that even in our kind of status as amateurs, but there's that kind of desire to get back on track if something goes wrong. So rather than perhaps the most sensible decision of saying, okay, we'll stop the night here, rather than where you were supposed to be, which was still 25 miles away, the view would be that you would still try to get to where you had planned to be, which is possibly the wrong decision.
Yeah. I can honestly say we have made those wrong decisions. But one of the things that the only time I think we've really been frightened on the bike was when we came in the Montagne de Champagne. We were up at Dom Perignon in a village called Ovillé, where Dom Perignon champion was in.
Yeah.
He was born there. And thankfully it was a Sunday. And we had a lovely time walking around the village and going into the church and doing the sort of tour of some of the wee shops and things. It was really nice. And when we left, of course, it's all downhill, serious downhills. And we were coming down the hill, and as you know, on a tandem, you build up a momentum. And we were coming down through a village where we came down to a T-junction, and we had to turn right. And we couldn't get the bike to stop. It was so steep. And because we sort of came on it quite quickly, this junction.
Break!
And it was, break. And, you know, it was a case of, it could have been a froome. We could have gone into the wall. Thankfully, it was Sunday and the road was quiet and we couldn't hear any cars. So we just went for it to go around the corner. And that's all we could do. Otherwise, we'd have been straight into the wall. It's the only time I think we've given ourselves a bit of a fright. Sheer momentum coming downhill.
Yeah, because they pick up speed very easily, and that there's a skill to handling them. Certainly,
and we were fully laden because we were traveling, so 4 panniers and
that's all. If you're doing the touring, you have to be very acutely aware of the difference in the weight. I'm sure you know yourself, the difference in the weight of the bike as it stands, kind of naked, like that, the naked bike, compared to what the kit you'll be taking yourself. I'm sure it's quite a difference in weight.
Yeah, and I know whenever we put front panniers on ours, it takes him a little bit of time just to adjust the handling and the steering, and it's a bit of thought to put in it. But it's a fab way to travel, isn't it? It's a great way to go on adventures like that with everything you need loaded on. So yeah.
You feel like a snail. You waddled on your back or your side.
Yeah.
I think you also feel, even when you have these adventures and walking up steep hills that you didn't think were going to be there, you're still so much closer to kind of nature and the environment, and you see so much more. You see that as well. That we'll go along a road in the car just maybe to check it out, and then when we actually go on the bike, we didn't see that in the car. We didn't actually see that from the car. We didn't notice this castle or something or whatever it is. Yeah. We didn't notice it was actually there.
Yeah, you do.
You're cycling along and there's a buzzard on the top of the fence post, whereas if you drove in the car, you'd scare it away. But on the bike, it just sits and looks at you and watches you go past, Nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like seeing the world at the speed of a bicycle, is there? And Matilda obviously writes about it very eloquently in her blog. And I wanted to come back to this because she's it's actually an award-winning blog, isn't it? And I think it's a credit to her and yourselves that she comes up with such good accounts.
She seems to get us into the adventure, so we're kind of habituated. My background is in communications and writing and stuff like that, so I see it as a kind of way of being a bit creative in the writing, and hopefully that's what it started off as more as a kind of diary for friends and relatives, as all these things tend to do. I think
it literally did, because we bought one of those books, didn't we, to write your your journey in.
And people said, oh, you should put that online so they can see it. So we did that in a restricted way, and then opened it up a bit wider, and seemed to grow in popularity. And I think people liked the fact that, as I say, that this kind of Matilda was writing about the old gal and the old git that were on our saddles. Self-deprecating humour, as we call it. And then a couple of years ago, probably about 3 years ago now, it became the only Scottish finalist, or the blog became, Matilda's Musings blog became the only Scottish finalist in the UK Blog Awards in the innovative blog category. So I think they were either completely confused as to what it was about, or they actually got the concept that it was the bike writing the blog in inverted commas. But yes, it's an award-winning blog. So not only is it the UK's only blogging tandem, but it's an award-winning blogging tandem.
Colin's talents. I just proofread it.
That does proofreading. I mean, I think secret of a success, if it is success, without being too kind of big-headed about it, but
yeah, no, it is definitely.
I think she as in the tandem, because obviously the tandem writes it, nothing to do with me. She writes to like it, writes to tell it as it is. I mean, I think part of our tandeming, I think, as you undoubtedly be aware by now, is about the social aspect of it, is about the food and drink experiences along the way, nice meal at lunchtime or a prosecco picnic or something, maybe staying overnight somewhere in a glamping pod or something, and it would be an honest appraisal of the places, the restaurants, or the accommodation that we visit. So it's a warts and all approach, shall we put it that way. And it's not at all sugar coated. And we've actually done a couple of what you would call advertorial type ones, only a couple, but we've actually been invited to road test, like maybe new accommodation that was focused on cyclists.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's one up at Loch Rannoch, and I said to them, yeah, happy to do it, but it will be an honest appraisal. As it turned out, it was a lovely place. So they were fine, but we did start saying that it will be warts and all, and no, that's what we want. We want it to be like that, because then we'll know that we know what we can improve on and stuff like that. But I think it's just the fact that it reflects hopefully our personality a little bit.
Yeah, and the fact that we don't take it too seriously, but we do take it seriously, because you've got to put the effort in, you've got to put the work in.
Yeah.
As you know, but.
And it reflects the fact that we want to have a laugh, and is it bubbly? I think is kind of another word that comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's bubbly, a bit like those prosecco picnics that we love.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think the way it comes, she comes across rather is fantastic. I think it makes it sound so accessible, and the fact that it is warts and all. You talk about your trials and tribulations. I think if it was all too seamless and sounded too easy, I don't think people would believe it. But I think it gives people a real idea of what it's like to go out and have a bit of fun and have a good laugh, and it
can still start to pour the rain at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you're 15 miles away from the car. And you've run out of energy, and you don't have that, and there's no shop around, and it's like, okay, this is reality. This is where it becomes a grind to get back. But
and the only words you can think of are words that you can't use.
But then, how good do you feel that hours later, when you've got a hot bath and a glass of wine, and you're tucked up next to the fire, you feel like you've achieved something? And it's those little challenges that make it.
I use that motivation all the time, but it doesn't always work. So when we get home, you'll think this is working.
No, it doesn't work at the time.
No, it doesn't work at the time. Is that a Stoker's thing? It doesn't work at the time.
Maybe it is.
It's a pilot's thing. They're always trying to make you believe something that's not true.
So yes, and again, it's not too difficult to find because it's on the WordPress platform. The actual URL is quite long, so I won't bore you with that on the podcast. So you just go to Mr. Google and put in Matilda's Musings, and up it'll pop. And you can have a fun read of that. And
I put in, I was doing a bit of fact checking, and I just put in Matilda Tandem, and you're the first thing to pop up there. So yeah, if Google says so.
believe it or not, there is another Matilda the Tandem.
Yes.
But she's
Oh,
called
really?
Tilly.
Silly,
She's
yeah.
called
okay.
Tilly. And about, again, this is the social aspect of it. About 2
Yeah.
months ago, we suddenly got an email through the blog, through the contact section of the blog saying, we have a Tilly the Tandem. Our tandem, we have a Matilda the Tandem. Our tandem's called Tilly for short, as in Tilly.
Yeah.
We're coming to Scotland in 3 weeks' time. Do you fancy meeting up? So Matilda met Matilda.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And
it's a real small world stuff. And they were doing a land end on the roads, right?
yeah.
And we did a small section of about 8 miles with them.
They were really heavily laden because they
Heavily
were
laden.
travelling for about 2.5, 3 weeks to get here
Oh.
from the south of England.
And that was quite funny because we shot off at our normal speed, which is not, as you've gathered by now, is not particularly fast, but we weren't heavily laden. So after about a mile, we suddenly said, where are they? And we had to adjust our speed, shall we say. Go back for them.
But we met them that day for coffee. And because you have a shared interest,
Yeah.
and you've got lots to talk about, you meet somebody for the first time. So we all decided when we left, we came home. It was nice to have met up. Thank you very much. It's been really nice to see you. And later that evening, swapped texts, virtually both of us sending the same text. Do you fancy meeting up again tomorrow? And we can go eat. So we did, didn't
Yeah,
we?
because they were having a rest day.
They were having a rest day,
and,
so we met up again. And had a
so,
lovely
yeah, I mean,
evening.
from someone that you've never met in your pub before, I think this is the kind of adventure side of it that you undoubtedly take, and you will undoubtedly experience in your own fabulous trip that's upcoming. And people will say, that's a bit risky. You think, well, what can go wrong? But all we've done is met them for a cycle ride. What exactly can go wrong? It's not going to be an axe murderer, hopefully, or anything like that. But it's these kind of stories that it brings that kind of small community together. I mean, who would have ever thought there was another Matilda the Tandem or Tilly the Tandem? And obviously, from that moment on, it was in the stars that they had to meet, And naturally, there was a blog about it. Tilly meets Tilly, Matilda meets Tilly.
Oh,
I mean, we just wish, really, that we were young enough to do like
yourself.
but what you're doing, to be able to go and just take off and do a big adventure. We can do sort of bite-sized adventures, but I don't think we couldn't tackle anything as big as you are.
Yeah, well, it is going to be quite an epic challenge, so we'll see how we get along.
I think in due course, you have to whisper this because Matilda might be listening. But I think in due course there will be an E-tandem appears, and therefore Matilda up to, and Matilda will be kept.
Well, she deserves a break, doesn't she, as well, on special occasions. And
there'll be an E-tandem here in a couple of years' time, and that will, I think, transform our probably enjoyment of it, to be honest, as well as the kind of distances, and just take away that, because obviously we are, we joke about it, the show parts of the tandem, but clearly not getting any younger for that weight of bike. So when it becomes that, when it crosses that barrier between pleasure and pain in terms of all the time not being a pleasure, you want it to be a pleasure, and that's what we're about, having fun, having a laugh. And it crosses that bridge becoming not pleasure. I think it's time to go the Europe. She'll still appear on special appearances.
An E-tandem would take the sting out of the ride home a little bit, wouldn't it? I know those hills.
It would open up a lot of quite a few new routes to us.
Yeah.
That we can't do. Yeah. We have tried, but it's too uncomfortable. Too stressful.
Yeah, well, that sounds fantastic. So yeah, I'll watch this space and see about what happens in Matilda's retirement, and I'm sure there will be many more blogs and many more updates in the meantime.
Well, it'll be just be Matilda Mark II, so we'll have to keep changing the blog.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a lot more blogging for a long time yet, and yes, I really look forward to it.
That's encouraged a few more people to think about getting together on a tandem, on a bicycle maker too, because I mean I think what's the Tandem Club kind of moniker or logo was twice as fun, and I'm sure
Yes.
you guys, I'm sure the two of you find that, although you're solo bikes as well, but when you're on the tandem, it does become a unit, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. And yeah, I'd love to think that anybody listening might just go out and give it a go and see if they enjoy it, and that would be fab. And it's been fantastic to hear about all your adventures and Matilda, and I think it's been really inspirational stuff. I have just got a little bit of tandem trivia for you to finish off with.
Right, okay.
Oh.
Usually my first one is, have you ever ridden a tandem? But there's no point asking that now, is there?
No, never.
No, never.
Don't remember
Not
it.
10 years ago. Neither of us was 10 years ago.
So my next question, I'm going to adapt a little bit. So if you were going to ride a tandem, possibly not Matilda, because I think she might be offended. If you're going to ride a tandem with somebody else, can't be either of you have to pick somebody else. Who would it be? And it can be anybody. It can be alive or dead or anybody. You can even have fictional characters if you want.
Oh, Gerard Butler, thank you very much.
There we go.
Yep. Yes, definitely Gerard Butler for me. Thank you.
I think I'll stick with the cycling, and I will stick with a male cyclist.
Yeah.
And look for Julian Alaphilippe.
Oh, that's a good one.
Obviously, king of the mountain, he'd be able to power
Yeah.
up the hills for me.
Yeah.
But while you're with Gerald Butler.
Well, on that note as well, would you swap seats? Would you stay as in your captain and stoker roles, or would you swap it about?
Julian would have to be stoker.
Do you think you might get a good view in the stoker seat still, Di?
Definitely. Remember where my hands are on my handlebars.
We never thought about that. We'll have discussions about that after the podcast.
All of our little secret fantasies, you know.
Amazing. And then when we're out riding, we always say we're joined by the frame, as are you two, which I think is quite sweet.
Yes.
So we're joined by the frame on the bike, but is there anything that you are joined by the frame to when you go out on bike rides? Is there anything that you can't live without? Is it the wine carrier, or any food or drink, or what can you not do without on the bicycle?
I think you probably know the answer to this one. And the Labucoli wine carrier and the Prosecco.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
Our signature.
Signature Prosecco pick.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'd aid our speed around the world, but it's a very tempting thought. At least I think, at very least, when we get back, I think we'll need to have it installed immediately on our return.
Yeah.
And one final question as well, is essentially, why should we ride around the world on a tandem together?
Oh, share the joy. Share the joy. Yeah. Let people see what two people on one bike can achieve, and just enjoy. Yeah. Just see the smiles when you're riding along and you're meeting all these new people and all these new places. I think it'd be just
Yeah, I think so. I think you can adapt it's the smiles, not the miles that count. Clearly, you've got the miles to do. I'm sure you could work the two words.
Miles and smiles, hopefully.
Yeah. Miles and smiles.
Definitely.
There you go.
Definitely.
Miles and smiles. There's your new ad line.
Yeah.
Your new tagline.
I might keep that one.
We'll send you the invoice for it later.
Quite jealous, yeah, of an adventure like yours. We really are. We wish we were young enough to do something like that.
Wow, I've really enjoyed reading about yours and Matilda's adventures. So yeah,
Cool.
it's been great.
Best of luck with your own trip, though.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fab to speak to you both. Thank you so much for taking the time, and yeah,
You have a
can't
fab
wait.
time. All the best.
So speaking to Colin and Di, there has just been absolutely fab. What a lovely, bubbly couple they are. and fantastic to hear all about all their adventures on Tandem. If you've enjoyed listening to them as much as I have, please do like and review this podcast, and share it with all your friends. It would mean a massive amount, because the more people we can get following us around the world, the better. And if you're not following us on social media already, have a look on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for regular updates on our planning and our trip. It's starting to get more and more exciting by the day now. So it's great to take everybody with us. Until next time, bye for now.